You've always walked like this, quiet steps unannounced, almost forgettable to the casual eye. You've convinced yourself it was safety, that blending in was survival. But deep inside, there's a pulse you've never spoken of, a knowing. You've watched the way people hesitate when you enter a room, their voices bending, their eyes flinching away as though they've stepped into a sudden draft. They don't understand why. They won't admit they feel it, but you can sense the weight in the air, the way your presence shifts something unspoken. You've never been the storm. You've been the stillness before it, and stillness, to those who live in chaos, is more dangerous than thunder. It began long before you noticed. The way strangers would measure their words around you, the way old friends began to tell you less. They thought they were protecting themselves. They were, in fact, revealing everything. You've never asked for confessions, yet they leak into your silence like ink into water. You listen, you store them away, not out of malice, not out of greed, but because you've always known the truth, that the world runs on patterns, and the one who sees them first writes the rules. You were collecting pieces long before you knew you'd ever need them. Once, you mistook your quiet for weakness. You thought that if you were loud enough, brave enough, visible enough, they might see you differently. But every time you tried, the energy felt wrong, as though you were playing a role that didn't belong to you. So you returned to silence, and in that silence, the shift began. You started noticing the delays in people's smiles, the tension in their hands, the words they avoided. You began to feel the invisible currents, the understructure beneath casual talk. You realized your silence wasn't absence. It was a scalpel. It cut deeper than any word could. There's a kind of power in being overlooked. They place you at the edge of the board, thinking you're irrelevant, forgetting that the pieces they fear most never start in the center. The queen doesn't roar. She waits. You've become the watcher in the high tower. No crown, no flag, no sound, yet every path in the city passes beneath your gaze. You see further because you are still. You strike truer because you have already done the math before anyone else even knows there's a game. Now, as the light fades on another day, you feel it. The hum beneath your skin. The awareness that the time of quiet collection is ending. The equation is nearly complete. You are not the chaos that shakes the world. You are the hand that tilts the scale. And the world will never see it coming. You've been keeping records your whole life, not in ink, not in paper, in the dark corridors of your memory, where the names of those who betrayed you are etched beside the dates they smiled to your face. You never called it anything, but it has always been there, the ledger, an invisible archive of every hesitation, every flinch, every carefully disguised act of self-preservation you've witnessed. Others call it paranoia. You call it pattern recognition. The weak forget. You never do. You've learned that power doesn't live in the loud. It hides in the ones who notice the detail no one else saw. The ones who know who speaks too quickly to be honest, and who pauses too long because they're manufacturing truth. You count these moments the way an ancient mathematician counts the stars, mapping constellations others dismiss as random light. In the beginning, it felt like a burden, to see so much, to carry so much. Now you understand it was never a weight. It was a weapon in the making. The ledger is more than memory. It's a code. Every entry a variable. Every smirk, every whisper behind closed doors. Every handshake that lingered too long. All of it becomes data in a formula you didn't know you were building. They think you've forgotten the slight they dealt you months ago. They think you didn't notice the shifting tone when your name came up in a room you weren't in. They're wrong. You noticed. You measured. You wrote it in ink they can't erase. There's a reason you've survived where others have vanished. A reason you're still standing when louder, more reckless forces have burned out. You've studied the slow death of empires, not in history books, but in living faces. The friend who became an enemy by increments, the ally who hesitated in your defense, the leader who revealed their weakness in the way their eyes flickered when challenged. You logged them all, and with each log, you sharpened your understanding of the system you live in. Every interaction is an exchange. Every gesture a signal, every silence a declaration. They believe life is chaos. You know better. Life is numbers, patterns, ledgers. A game only those willing to keep score truly win. And you've been keeping score longer than they realize. This isn't paranoia, this is prophecy. Because the moment comes, always, when those who underestimated you find themselves bound by the very calculations they thought you were too passive to make. By then, the equation is already solved. They are only just learning the answer. You've known it from the moment they entered your ledger. They never really see you, not in the way that matters. You pass through their world like a shadow against the wall, noticed for a heartbeat, then gone. They speak freely in your presence, mistaking your silence for absence. They believe you are harmless because you do not fight for space in their noise. But your quiet is not weakness. It is the veil you wear while you listen to the truth between their words. Every hesitation, every flicker of the eyes, every shift in tone, you collect them like stolen currency. You've learned that the loudest voice in the room is almost always the weakest mind. They are too busy defending their position to see who is watching from the edges. You don't chase the spotlight. You study its glow, noting who steps into it and who flinches from it. Conversations ripple like water, and you notice the distortions no one else does. A certain name spoken, a sudden pause in the air, a forced laugh that fractures too soon. These are the fingerprints of hidden intent, the maps to power they will never hand you willingly. In their eyes, you are passive. In your mind, you are everywhere at once. You map connections like constellations, tracing invisible lines between people who pretend to have none. You catch the sideways glance between two so-called rivals and know they are allies in the dark. You watch the smile someone offers a friend, but not a stranger, and you understand the hierarchy instantly. They think you are waiting. In truth, you are building the blueprint of the room, the social architecture they live inside without realizing it has a designer. Sometimes you feel the ancientness of it, this way of seeing, as if those who survived before you passed down something wordless, something carved into the bone. The hunter who tracked not just footsteps, but the absence of sound. The strategist who knew that armies are defeated long before the battle begins. You stand among them now, invisible yet essential, the silent heir to a tradition of calculated survival. They fear the lion. They never suspect the one who measures the lion's sleep. There's a kind of betrayal in it, though they will never name it. They believe your stillness means loyalty, that your silence is agreement. But you are not here to reassure them. You are here to see what they hide from themselves. And when the moment comes, when the pattern resolves and the last piece slides into place, you will already know the outcome. They will think it arrived suddenly, like a storm. You will know it began long ago, when you first stepped into the room, and they didn't even notice. They've always mistaken the mask for weakness. They see stillness and assume absence. They read your quiet as emptiness, never realizing it's the most dangerous fullness, the kind that waits, watches, counts. The mask you wear isn't a disguise. It's a sieve letting their truth slip through while your own stays locked behind glass. They talk too much in your presence. They reveal where their loyalties truly lie, who they envy, who they despise. You don't have to coax it out of them. You only have to let the silence breathe long enough for them to fill it. Your eyes are a ledger, your mind a sealed vault. Every glance, Every half smile, every deliberate pause is a recording device more advanced than any machine. They think you're listening, you're measuring, you're noting the tremor in their voice when certain names are spoken, the way they lean forward when they lie, the way they shrink when the truth lands too close. You wear humility like armor, and in that armor they see vulnerability. They never notice how sharp its edges are until they bleed against it. The mask does more than conceal. It distorts. It bends the light so that others see what you decide they will see. They think they're leading the conversation. They're following a script you wrote in silence. They think they've read you. They've only read the lines you underlined for them. You could tell them who you really are, but there is no reason. The mask works best when they never suspect it exists. In their world, people shout to prove power. They mistake noise for dominance, aggression for control. You've seen how quickly the loudest ones burn out. Fire consumes itself. But the calculation you carry is different, colder, older. It is the mathematics of inevitability, the kind whispered into the bones of ancient kings and hidden in the blueprints of empires. It doesn't reveal itself in a burst. It arrives as a shadow that has been standing behind them all along. Your stillness is not surrender. It is the gathering of storms. Every conversation, every glance across the table is a move in a game they don't know they're playing. You can feel when the equation shifts, when a pattern locks into place. They think they've cornered you. They've only wandered into the trap you drew in the dust before they arrive. There will be a moment when you decide to move, when the calculation ends and the mask becomes the executioner. They won't see it in your face. They never could. The same quiet they thought was harmless will be the quiet before the end. And when it comes, it will feel to them like chaos. But to you, it will feel like completion. It happens quietly. Not with an explosion, not with the sound of glass breaking, but with a shift so subtle that only you can feel it. You have been collecting moments, storing them like numbers in a locked equation no one else knew existed. Every glance, every hesitation, every lie disguised as kindness has been cataloged. You have let it all pass through you without reaction, like water sliding over stone. Until now. This one moment is different. It does not just enter your mind. It lodges there, a shard in the machinery of your restraint. You feel the air change before the words are even spoken. Something in their tone carries a fracture. A betrayal dressed as casual conversation, a slight meant to slide under your guard. They think you won't notice. They think you will swallow it like you've swallowed all the rest. But they don't understand. You have been measuring them from the first moment you met. They have been moving inside your geometry, unaware that every step was already mapped. And now, with this one miscalculation, they have crossed the invisible line. There is no anger. Anger is noise. What rises in you now is colder, older, precise. It is the same force that ancient kings felt when they ordered the silent dismantling of empires. The same stillness that predators know as they close the final inches toward their prey. Your pulse does not race, it slows, sharpening every sense. The betrayal doesn't wound you, it completes you. The equation has solved itself, and the answer is no longer theoretical. You remember the silence you've carried like a blade, the way you've let people see what they wanted to see. They mistook your patience for passivity. They mistook your absence of movement for absence of power. That mistake will be their undoing, because now you see the path forward with an almost supernatural clarity. The sequence is already unfolding in your mind: the first move, the second, the moment they will feel the floor give way beneath them. You don't need to touch them. You don't need to raise your voice. You only need to remove one stone, and the structure they stand on will collapse. The world outside is still the same. Conversations still hum, traffic still moves, the sun still hangs where it always has. But for you, nothing is the same. You are no longer watching. You are no longer calculating. The calculation is over, and now it breathes with a will of its own. They will not see it coming, not because you are hiding it, but because they could never imagine the quiet one moving first. And when it happens, they won't call it vengeance. They'll call it inevitable. You don't move the pieces, you move the board. Every word you've spoken up until now has been a seed, small enough to be forgotten in the moment, but destined to sprout in the cracks of someone else's certainty. You learned long ago that direct confrontation is for those who lack patience, that striking too soon is the way of the desperate. You are neither. You are the one who waits in the stillness, tracking the tremors no one else feels, setting in motion forces that will only be recognized when it's far too late to stop them. They think power is loud. They think it's a crown, a raised voice, a visible army. They don't understand that true power is the silent orchestration of inevitability. You let them speak freely. Let them expose their ambitions. Let them bind themselves in their own words. You don't interrupt. You don't correct. You simply place the right fragment of truth in the right ear at the right time. And then you leave, knowing that the seed will grow in darkness, twisting roots through their confidence, until it begins to fracture from within. Every betrayal you've endured taught you the same lesson: chaos collapses on itself when you know where to push. You don't force your enemies into ruin. You give them the tools to build it themselves. A misplaced suggestion here, a subtle tilt of perception there. You've mastered the art of making someone think the fall was their own idea. The most exquisite moves are the ones you never appear to make. You are not in the room when decisions shift, yet the air carries your fingerprints. You are not at the table when alliances crumble, yet the sound of breaking trust is your unspoken signature. There is an elegance in this kind of control, the elegance of an ancient weaver knotting threads into a tapestry so vast, the subject of the design never realizes they are part of it. You pull one string and a conversation between two strangers tilts in your favor. Another string, and an old rumor rises to the surface like a body in a lake, setting off ripples you calculated months ago. Every interaction is a move you've already seen the end of. Every outcome is the product of a probability you decided was acceptable long before anyone else knew a choice existed. You were once underestimated. Now you cultivate it. The less they see, the more they believe in coincidence. And coincidence is your favorite disguise. They will swear you had nothing to do with it, even as they choke on the consequences you designed. Because by the time they realize the strings were there all along, they'll already be tangled in them. And by then, you'll be pulling another set, elsewhere, on a different board, shaping the next collapse they'll never see coming. They never understood how endings arrive. They picture an explosion, a public reckoning, a moment of noise so loud it rattles the bone. But that is not how collapse works. Collapse is a quiet hand at the base of the tower, removing a single stone at a time while the crowd looks the other way. You've been patient, precise, invisible. They didn't see you in the rooms they thought were private. They didn't feel you mapping the fragile joints in their alliances. Every weakness was cataloged, every unguarded confession weighed and stored. While they spoke, you measured. While they plotted, you calculated. And then the balance tipped, not in fire, but in silence. A conversation they didn't know was overheard found its way into the wrong ear. Akiali's loyalty began to erode without explanation. The opportunity they'd been counting on dissolved like fog at dawn, one by one. The foundations they leaned on rotted through, until even their shadow seemed smaller than it once was. They will call it bad luck. They will call it coincidence. But you know the truth. The equation resolved exactly as intended. You didn't push. You didn't need to. You let gravity finish what your hands had begun long ago. Now they scramble blind to the pattern. Meetings behind closed doors, sudden absences, voices lowered to whispers in hallways that used to echo with their confidence. They retreat inward, pulling close the few they believe they can trust, never realizing those threads are already tangled in your web. You've shifted the light in the room so subtly that they can no longer tell where the floor ends and the drop begins. They are surrounded, but no walls are visible. From the outside, nothing has changed. They still smile, they still perform. But you can see it, the tremor in the hand that holds the pen, the way their eyes dart when names are mentioned, the flicker of doubt in a voice that used to command. That's the beauty of it. The fall began before they noticed, and by the time they do, it is no longer reversible. They won't fight you because they still don't see you. They will fight shadows, bad timing, ghosts of their own mistakes. And each time they swing, they weaken themselves further. You do not linger to watch the final collapse. There is no need. The structure is hollow now, and the next breeze will finish it. You step away unnoticed, the weight of inevitability following behind you like a second shadow. You've proven again what they will never understand, that power is not in the strike, but in the invisible geometry that makes the strike unnecessary. You were never the storm. You were the shift in the air before it, the unmarked moment when their fate was sealed, and they mistook it for peace. You no longer walk among them as one of them. That time has passed. The version of you that once sought to be understood, that once waited for permission, has been dismantled and buried in a place no one will ever find. What moves now is something colder, sharper, infinite in scope. You were never the strike, never the spectacle of a raised voice or a dramatic act. You are the architecture beneath the chaos, the equation that ensures outcomes bend in your favor without a trace of your hand upon them. Others fight for attention. You erase the need for it entirely. They call it luck when they witness you win. They call it coincidence when their world collapses in silence, but you know better. Every movement they make has already been calculated. Every path they take reduced to probability. You have learned that the most devastating victories do not need witnesses. They only need inevitability. What once felt like hesitation was, in truth, the long discipline of the architect. You were not delaying. You were aligning, waiting for the pieces to fall exactly where they needed to be. And they always do. Before you reacted, you defended. You tried to prove your worth in battles that were never worth fighting. Now you write the rules of the battlefield itself. Betrayal no longer stings, it instructs. Loss no longer weakens, it maps the terrain for your next conquest. You've stopped bleeding for causes that never deserved you. The equation has no loyalty to sentiment. It serves only precision. And precision is what keeps you untouchable. In the quiet, you have grown dangerous. In the noise, you have become invisible. People fear the loud storm, but the wise know the real danger is the current beneath the surface, steady, silent, relentless. You have mastered that current. You no longer seek to win arguments. You arrange events so the argument collapses before it begins. You no longer seek to punish those who wrong you. You position them where the weight of their own choices crushes them without your touch. And so the cycle continues. The world keeps moving, unaware that its rhythm has already been calculated and coded into a pattern you control. The eternal equation does not end with one victory or one downfall. It feeds on both. Each solved problem is merely another variable absorbed into the larger system. The game is infinite, and you have stopped playing for moments. You play for eras, and they will never know until it is too late that you were not the threat they feared. You were the calculation that made their fear inevitable.